My name is Ann Sermons-Gillis, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story of suffering. I grew up in a family where there was a lot of suffering. And when I say suffering, I don't mean suffering because we didn't have enough or suffering because there were tragedies happening all around us. I mean suffering over things that didn't matter. And I took that on. And I began a spiritual search because I was so tired and emotionally exhausted that I knew there had to be a better way. I trained to be a therapist, and in one of my training sessions, it was in a group therapy. I was in therapy to be a therapist, so I was in therapy. And in this group therapy, my supervisor said, "Some people have a worry racket." And my ears perked up. I went, "What?" Because I thought, I worry about everything. And he said, "Yes, some people have a worry about racket." And I said, "Well, tell me more about it." And he said, "Well, they just worry about everything." And it was such an aha experience because I realized that it wasn't the things that made me worry. It was that I had a mindset that worrying was the way or the lens through which I saw life. That was my modus operandi. It was this suffering. I'm talking about this ego-driven suffering. And so I began to look for a better way, and I realized that I was at choice, that I had been not really looking at the things that I needed, that when I really needed to suffer about something or I was in genuine pain, that I wasn't really addressing that, and everything was going sideways, and I just looked at everything through the same lens, and that was the lens of suffering, the lens of worrying, the lens of what if. And I began to search, and as I began to meditate, I began to key into a part of the mind that doesn't worry all the time. In other words, it was not my limited mind, it was not my conditioned mind, but it was something that was deeper, something that was more expansive. And I developed a philosophy called EZosophy because I knew that I needed it. I needed emotional relief. And as I developed this philosophy, I found out that I was not the only one, that a lot of people needed emotional relief. And so it became important to me when I was suffering or upset to look and see, am I only suffering or am I only upset because I'm using the mechanism in my mind that views everything as suffering? Or is there something really here to deal with? And that was a very helpful question because sometimes there were things to deal with. But most of the time, no. Most of the time I was suffering about inconsequential things, like I'm too hot. Oh God, I'm too hot. Well, I could be hot and just say, I don't really like being hot. Let me do something to change this. But I don't have to suffer about being too hot. So that's where I don't have to suffer that there's a hair on my face that is that was itching me. I just need to move the hair. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a hair on my face and it's itching. Like I'm some kind of a victim of the world. I think that that's the ultimate perception, is that I'm a victim of everything that I see. And it's not. I am the one that creates my life into victimhood through using this suffering mechanism to judge all of life and to express all of life and to shut down all of life. And in some weird way, I use the suffering to protect myself. I think I thought that if I was suffering enough that the gods couldn't come down and give me anything more because they began, oh, there's Anne, she's had too much, we don't want to give her any more because she's had too much pain and suffering and injury. So there were a lot of things mixed up into this ego-driven struggle and suffering, and I just wanted to bring that up in case you had any of the same drives. It is easy for me to move right back into that habitual suffering over nothing. Now, and remember, I'm delineating between things that are genuinely worth suffering over, like if you get very, very ill and you think you're going to die, then you're going to grieve and you're going to have pain, you're going to suffer. But I'm talking about taking out the trash, getting up early in the morning. I'm talking about not having 2 socks that match. I'm talking about things that are not worthy of suffering. So there you have it. And I want you to remember one more thing for sure, and that is that I love you.